If your legs no longer respond as well as they used to, do this seated and regain your strength. There is an enormous difference between legs that carry you and legs that hold you up by inertia. When you start calculating the effort needed before getting up from a chair, when your knee trembles going down a flight of stairs, when you avoid trails and uneven sidewalks because deep down you know you no longer trust your own step, your legs have already crossed that line. And you probably walk, maybe even every day. But here's the invisible trap. Walking is not strengthening. It is the repetition of a pattern your body has already mastered. Muscles only grow stronger when they receive a new stimulus, a resistance that forces them to adapt. Without that, the loss continues, silent, gradual, and dangerous. The good news is that muscle responds to stimulus at any age. That is why today you will see 7 exercises you can do at home that reactivate exactly the muscles responsible for keeping you upright, steady, and independent, strengthening the quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, calves, and inner thighs. Before we begin, please tell us in the comments your name and the city you are watching from. We would love to know. Exercise number 1, seated butterfly. The seated butterfly is an exercise that rarely appears on training lists for people over 50, but it deserves a far more prominent place than it usually occupies. It works primarily the adductors, the muscle group along the inner thighs, as well as the deep muscles of the pelvis, a region most people only think about when it has already started to fail them. These muscles are directly responsible for lateral stability when walking, when changing direction quickly, and especially when recovering balance after a stumble. A study published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity demonstrated that older adults with strong adductors have a 35% lower risk of lateral falls, precisely the fall most associated with hip fractures. Can you imagine what that difference means in the daily life of someone who has already felt their knee give way on a flight of stairs? Beyond direct strengthening, the movement also stimulates circulation in the groin area, functioning as a kind of lymphatic pump that helps reduce swelling and tingling in the legs, complaints that are extremely common at the end of the day. To perform it, sit on the edge of a firm chair with your spine completely upright and your feet flat on the floor. Place your palms on the inner sides of your knees, and from there, try to push your legs outward by pressing your knees to the sides, while your hands provide resistance by pushing them inward. The tension forms between the force of the legs and the resistance of the hands. Hold that contraction for 3 to 5 seconds, breathe steadily throughout the effort, and then release in a controlled way before repeating. As a bonus tip, as the exercise becomes easier, progressively increase the resistance force of your hands. It is an effective way to ensure progressive overload without any equipment. The main errors to avoid are arching your back during the effort, leaning your torso forward, trying to recruit other muscles to compensate, and releasing the tension abruptly at the end of each repetition. Keep your chest open and your lower back firm throughout the movement. Do 3 sets of 12 repetitions with 30 seconds of rest between them. It is contraindicated for anyone with an active inguinal hernia or who is in recent post-operative recovery from hip surgery without medical clearance. Exercise number 2, seated stationary march. The seated stationary march has a very specific and frequently overlooked target, the iliopsoas muscle, the primary hip flexor. This muscle is what initiates the lifting of the leg with each step, and when it weakens, the most visible and dangerous result is dragging the feet while walking. A dragging foot does not need a high obstacle to cause a fall. A door threshold, a slight unevenness in the sidewalk, a poorly placed rug is already enough. In addition to strengthening the iliopsoas, the seated stationary march improves coordination between the hip and the abdomen, activates circulation in the lower limbs, and preserves hip joint mobility without any impact on the joints, making it safe even for those who already have some degree of arthritis. To perform it, sit with your spine upright and away from the back of the chair. Rest your hands lightly on the sides of the seat or on your thighs, and raise your knees alternately as if you were marching in slow motion with a controlled and rhythmic movement. The goal is to bring the knee up to hip height or as close to that as your current mobility allows. Do not force beyond a comfortable range. Keep your breathing steady and the movement fluid throughout the entire set. The most common error is curving the torso forward to compensate for a limited hip range of motion. This reduces the activation of the iliopsoas and also begins to unnecessarily overload the lower back. Keep your chest open and your gaze forward. Another frequent error is performing the movement too quickly. losing control and the quality of the stimulus. Do 3 sets of 20 alternating raises, 10 for each leg, with 30 seconds of rest between sets. There are no significant contraindications for most people, but anyone with acute hip pain or an inflammatory bursitis condition should reduce the range of motion and consult a physical therapist before progressing. Exercise number 3, standing leg curl. The hamstring muscles form, together with the quadriceps, the pair responsible for the protection and stability of the knee. This balance between the two groups is fundamental. When the hamstrings are significantly weaker than the quadriceps, the knee is left unprotected and the load on it increases progressively. This imbalance is very common after the age of 50 and is directly associated with an increased risk of knee injuries and the progression of arthritis. Strengthening the hamstrings also improves the power of each stride and reduces the load on the lower back during everyday activities, such as squatting, climbing stairs, and getting up from the floor. It is a muscle group that works constantly in the background, but one that many people only discover when it starts to fail. To perform it, stand behind the chair, holding the backrest with both hands for stability. Keep your torso completely straight and bend one knee slowly, bringing the heel toward the glute. Raise in a controlled manner, and on the way down, slow down even more, resisting gravity instead of letting the leg drop. This eccentric lowering phase is where much of the strengthening and tendon protection occurs. As a bonus tip, when you reach the top of the movement, pause for 1 second and firmly contract the muscle before starting the descent. This increases time under tension and improves results without adding any extra load. The main error to avoid is swinging the hip to the side when bending the knee, trying to compensate for a lack of range of motion. The movement should be pure and isolated at the knee. Another common error is performing the raise quickly and the descent even faster, losing what this exercise has that is most valuable. Do 3 sets of 12 repetitions on each leg. People with a history of hamstring injury or severe knee problems should avoid the movement without prior assessment from a health professional. Exercise number 4, glute bridge. The glute bridge is one of the most complete exercises for people over 50, and not by coincidence. It simultaneously activates the gluteus maximus, which is the largest muscle in the human body, the hamstring muscles, and the entire stabilizing chain of the lower back, without generating any impact on the joints. Strong glutes are essential for upright posture, for knee protection, and for preventing chronic lower back pain, which is one of the most common complaints in this age group. There is also a very welcome metabolic effect. Because it is the largest muscle in the body, the gluteus maximus, when well trained, raises the basal metabolic rate, causing the body to burn more calories even at rest. This is the kind of gain that goes far beyond aesthetics. To perform it, lie on your back on the floor with your knees bent and your feet flat on the ground at hip width. Gently tighten your abdomen, press your heels into the floor, and lift your hips until your shoulders, hips, and knees form a straight line. Hold the position for 2 seconds at the top, contracting the glutes with intensity, and lower slowly. Resist gravity on the way down and do not let your hips drop suddenly. The slower that descent, the greater the muscular stimulus generated by the exercise. The main errors to avoid are arching the lower back excessively at the top of the movement, which removes the work from the glutes and overloads the spine, and letting the knees fall inward during the lift. Keep the knees aligned with the feet throughout the movement. Do 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. It is contraindicated for anyone with acute pain in the lower back or neck, or for anyone who has genuine difficulty lying down and getting up from the floor safely. Before we continue, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will help you progress with long-term health in the world of exercise. Exercise number 5, seated knee extension. The seated knee extension is the most direct isolation exercise for the quadriceps, the muscle that almost exclusively determines the ability to rise from a chair, climb steps, and maintain a standing position with stability for long periods. And you know why this muscle matters so much after 50? Because of weak guys, quadriceps is one of the main factors that causes people to start depending on support to stand up, and that dependence, when left unattended, addressed, deepens quickly. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research concluded that quadriceps strengthening reduces compressive load on the kneecap by up to 25%, relieving pain in patients with mild to moderate arthritis, with functional improvement observed in just 8 weeks of regular training. That means the time between starting and feeling a real difference is much shorter than most people imagine. To perform it, sit with your back supported against the backrest of the chair and slowly raise one leg until it is parallel to the floor. With the leg extended, pull your toes toward your body and hold the quadriceps contraction for 3 seconds before beginning the descent. The descent should be slow and controlled, resisting gravity. This eccentric phase is where most of the muscle gain occurs. As a natural progression, when you feel the exercise is becoming easier, add a light ankle weight to maintain an appropriate stimulus. The classic error in this exercise is using momentum to raise the leg and letting it drop on the way down. This pattern wastes almost all of the muscular stimulus and also unnecessarily overloads the joint. Raise slowly and descend even more slowly. Do 3 sets of 10 repetitions on each leg. It is contraindicated in cases of active patellar tendon injury or post-knee surgery without medical clearance. Exercise number 6, donkey kick. The donkey kick may have the most informal name on the list, but it leaves nothing to be desired in terms of effectiveness. It primarily strengthens the gluteus maximus and the hamstring muscles in a quadruped position, supported on the hands and knees, which completely eliminates the load on the spine and on the knees. For those with joint limitations that make squats and other standing exercises difficult or impossible, this exercise opens an important door to strengthening the entire posterior chain. Beyond strength gains, it also develops motor control of the hip, which is the ability to move that joint with precision and coordination. This control is essential for stability when walking and when going up and down steps safely, especially on uneven surfaces. To perform it, support yourself on all fours with your hands directly below your shoulders and your knees directly below your hips. Keep your spine in a neutral position, neither drooping downward nor arching upward. Raise one leg back and upward as if you were pushing the ceiling with your heel, keeping the knee bent at 90 degrees. Rise until you feel maximum contraction in the glute. Hold for 1 second and lower slowly without resting the knee on the floor before the next repetition. For anyone who has difficulty supporting themselves on the floor due to wrist or knee limitations, the exercise can be adapted to a standing position, behind a chair with the same movement mechanics. The main error to avoid is rotating the hip to the side when lifting the leg, which is exactly what removes the work from the glute and transfers the effort to other muscles. The hip must remain parallel to the floor throughout the movement. Another frequent error is arching the lower back at the top, trying to gain more range than the joint allows. Do 3 sets of 12 repetitions per side. It is contraindicated for anyone with acute pain in the wrists, shoulders, or knees when supporting themselves on the floor, and in those cases the standing version behind a chair is the recommended alternative. Exercise number 7, chair squat. The chair squat is considered by geriatric medicine to be the most relevant movement for maintaining physical independence. The reason is straightforward. It reproduces exactly the action of sitting down and standing up, performed dozens of times a day, and which is, in practice, the first movement that people lose the autonomy to perform when their legs weaken. Can you imagine the impact that losing this ability has on daily life? Every time a person needs help getting up from a chair, a portion of their autonomy slips away. The exercise activates the quadriceps, glutes, and the entire stabilizing chain of the spine in an integrated way, and also reconnects the fast twitch muscle fibers, which are the ones that react to emergencies such as an imminent stumble, and are the first to disappear with prolonged inactivity. To perform it, sit on the edge of the chair with your feet at shoulder width and your heels firmly planted on the floor. Cross your arms over your chest, lean your torso slightly forward, and push through your heels until you are completely standing. The real secret of this exercise lies in the descent. Return to the seated position extremely slowly, counting mentally to 4, as if the chair were too fragile to receive your weight suddenly. Avoid dropping back into the seat, because that is what most people do, and it is exactly what wastes the greatest benefit of the exercise. The main errors to avoid are letting the knees cave inward on the way up, throwing the body backward on the way down without control, and performing the movement too quickly without working the eccentric phase. People with intense intense knee pain can reduce the range of motion, not sitting down completely before standing up again, and progress gradually as strength improves. Do 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions. It is contraindicated for anyone recovering from hip or knee surgery without medical clearance. These 7 exercises already form a solid foundation for reactivating the legs. But before we wrap up, there is one that is particularly valuable for anyone who suffers from poor circulation, swelling, and nighttime cramps. And it could not be left off this list. Bonus exercise, calf raise. If there is one muscle group that receives little attention but plays an absolutely critical role for anyone over 50, that group is the calves. In medicine, they are called the second heart of the body, and that is not an empty metaphor. With every contraction of the calves, the blood that is pooled in the lower limbs due to the force of gravity is actively pushed back toward the heart. When this muscle is weak, circulation in the lower limbs deteriorates, swelling in the feet and ankles increases, nighttime tingling appears frequently, and cramps, especially at night, become a constant and uncomfortable presence. Strong calves also extend stride length, improve reflexes in response to stumbles, and contribute directly to balance, functioning as a shock absorber that gives the nervous system the time it needs to reorganize before a fall occurs. To perform it, stand behind the chair with your hands resting lightly on the backrest only for balance, without gripping it firmly. Keep your spine upright, your knees slightly extended, and rise onto the balls of your feet as high as you can, holding the position for 2 seconds at the top. The most important part is the descent. Lower your heels counting slowly to 3, resisting gravity in a controlled way. Never let the weight drop suddenly. This slow eccentric phase is the most protective for the tendons and ankles, and the one that produces the greatest muscular adaptation over time. As a bonus tip, anyone with access to a step or a firm stair can perform the exercise on that surface, which expands the range of motion and significantly increases calf activation, especially in the lower portion of the muscle. The calf is a muscle predominantly composed of slow twitch fibers, which is why it responds better to sets with more repetitions than to very heavy loads. The main errors to avoid are bending the knees during the movement, which transfers the load away from the target muscle, and performing the repetitions at an accelerated pace without control during the descent phase. Keep the knees slightly extended and the pace slow from start to finish. Do 3 sets of 15 repetitions. It is contraindicated for anyone with acute Achilles tendon inflammation or a recent ankle sprain still in the inflammatory phase. If you enjoyed this and want to discover another exercise widely practiced in communities across Asia to undo years of neglecting the body, we have left a video appearing on screen right now showing each one of them in greater detail. Make sure to check it out. Thank you for watching all the way through, and God bless you, my friend.